video. I'm kinda scared to talk about Stranger Things because I don't think any video could cover just how great this series really is. However, after starting my second pre-season rewatch, I wanted to revisit the opening of the first season, specifically everything before the credits. So, today, we're talking about this poor government dude, this spooky lad, and these top boys, and how all of them come into play before the credits to set the scene for... We're covering everything before the credits start to roll. That gives the show exactly 8 minutes and 25 seconds to give us the lowdown. That splits into 1 minute and 39 seconds at the Hawkins facility, and 6 minutes and 40 seconds with the boys. Each of these scenes has a key element introduced to the story. The Hawkins facility scene introduces the threat of the Demogorgon and where it came from. It has to make us scared of the Demogorgon, but not give everything away right away. The D&D scene introduces our main four, and then progresses directly into Will's disappearance. We'll get onto all that later, but first, back to Hawkins' power and light. The first thing we see inside the facility are flashing lights. Remember these, they will be important later. This is the second shot of the show, and already we're getting clues about the Demogorgon. We just don't know it yet, however. This is one of the things I especially love about this opening. It shows you something, and then shows you it again in a different setting, and it clicks. Let's build another layer on those flashing lights with this dude. The wiki just calls him Elevator Scientist, but he deserves more than that, damn it. So I'm going to call him Dave. Dave is introduced running away from the Demogorgon. Here's the key though. If the first set of lights didn't tip you off that something was wrong, the lights behind the door will. These are more traditional hazard lights, and coupled with the siren and Dave sprinting, you are blatantly shown that something is wrong. The scene doesn't stop here, however. I like how the scene builds on senses, if that makes any sense. Let me explain. Until we reach the door, all you can do in this scene is observe. You have to read the text on screen and look at the lights. When the door opens, sound prominently comes into the mix with the siren and Dave running. Then, once Dave reaches the elevator, he repeatedly slams the button to call it. Now obviously you can't touch the show, but it's building to that fear using the character touching something. If this was something like a fire alarm, Dave wouldn't be freaking out this much. Intercut back and forth from Dave to the hallway, we keep building the intensity, then... Just as the show used sound to illustrate that something is wrong, it uses sound to illustrate safety. And just when you think Dave is home free... Before we move on to the D&D scene, I want to break down what happens in the elevator a little more, because it's the icing on the cake of this opening. Again, the show uses sound to tell you something. We don't see the Demogorgon in this scene, we only hear it. The sounds we've heard so far in this scene are completely industrial, the lights and the sirens. In comparison, the Demogorgon sounds very otherworldly, but still organic. It's like a double contrast. It contrasts to the setting that Dave is in by being organic in an industrial setting, but it also contrasts to the viewer. It sounds animalistic enough that the viewer can start forming ideas about what the Demogorgon actually is, but the sound isn't familiar to the viewer in any way, so they're left uncomfortable. To top this all off, we don't get to see how the Demogorgon kills poor Dave. He just gets pulled up, and the rest is left to the viewer's imagination. Mystery always betters horror in my opinion. Let's take some comparisons. Don't worry, no jump scares or spoilers here, I'm not an asshole. However, there will be a spooky face, so if you're not into that, or you're watching at 2 AM, close your eyes until you hear me say mystery. Okay, go. The creatures from Bird Box weren't all that intriguing once we saw what they were meant to look like. Neither were those in A Quiet Place. What about Diana from Lights Out? Remember how unsettling this was? Then that's all revealed to be this. The mystery was ruined, and so was the fear. That's why having an intriguing mystery in this opening is so crucial. You need to be scared of this monster, but also intrigued by it. Before we move on, don't you think it's weird that we only see Dave trying to escape? Every single other scene we see of scientists in this series has them in groups. It's not too far-fetched to assume that Dave was the last man standing from a group, and that just adds to the scene. Okay, now onto the main four. The D&D scene does two things. It introduces our four main boys and directly foreshadows Will's encounter with the Demogorgon. Our dungeon master here is Mike. He's the leader of the four in a sense. They play D&D at his house and he writes the campaigns. We see that he doesn't like losing control. This is mostly evidenced when he argues with his mum about having to stop playing. Throughout the series, we see him grapple with not being able to control the craziness around him, and being told that he can't do anything about Will's disappearance. Will is the next to speak up in this scene, but I want to save him until last. For now, let's move on to Dustin. Dustin starts out determined, but quickly fills with doubt when he thinks about the Demogorgon. This doubt extends to Will, but Lucas tries to abolish it by reassuring Dustin. Mike regains control of the situation by throwing the group a red herring. The group laughs it off, especially Dustin, who laughs at his fear. Then... The Demogorgon! Dustin reacts differently to reality than he did when he was imagining the situation. He's less scared and more real. exclaiming,
Deep shit.
while Mike is the leader of the group, Dustin is the realist here. That moves us on to Lucas. He starts the scene with the same determined attitude as Dustin. However, when presented with danger, he tries to encourage the group to face it. He sees through Mike's red herring, but doesn't expect the twist. When Will is called to action, Lucas pushes for offensive, as opposed to Dustin's defensive strategy. The offensive is a risky move, but Lucas believes in it. He's the optimist here. That leads us to Will. Will goes through some fantastic development throughout this opening. Let's break it down. Will's immediate reaction is to find out more. Whereas Lucas and Dustin are silently determined, Will is trying to outsmart the situation. He shares Dustin's fear of the Demogorgon and Lucas's optimism upon the troglodytes. However, he quickly goes back to being uncertain about the situation. Then he's called to action.
Will, your action! I don't know.
Will doesn't know what to do. One quick thing that really sells the chemistry of the group is that they just jump to Will's aid without question. Lucas is optimistic that the group can defeat the Demogorgon, and suggests that Will goes on the offensive. Will knows that the odds aren't in his favour, and argues back.
Fireball! I'd have to roll a 13 or higher. Too risky. Cast a protection.
Dustin offers the protection solution. I think Lucas hits a nerve here with the pussy line, however.
Don't be a pussy! Fireball him!
Will is important to the group, but we can see that he is the odd one out here, and the series as a whole reinforces that. He wants to be accepted, so he goes for the
Fireball!
This ultimately fails, and it all leads into Will being separated. Good God, once this scene gets outside, it gets even better.
It was a 7. The Demogorgon. It got me.
You hear that? That's... Then our scenes link up. About these lights. They employ the rule of threes. In film, this is where an idea is set up initially, then the viewer is later reminded before finally experiencing payoff. There's a video link in the description if you want to know more about this, but for now, here's how Stranger Things does it here. Everything we've seen now is playing a part. We know our characters and we know our threat. Now the show has to bring them together, and bada bing, bada boom, you got yourself one of the best Netflix series ever. The show continues to blend these elements. You've been reminded of the threat, but we keep the friendly tone of the D&D game. The guys are just being friends, cycling home, making jokes, and betting X-Men 134. Then, once Will is alone, the show's like, okay, fun's over, now get ready for some real shit. Before moving on, does this sequence of events seem oddly familiar? It should, because it's the D&D game.
A shadow grows on the wall behind you. Troglodytes charge into the chamber.
Troglodytes. Told ya.
The Demogorgon!
Too risky. Cast a protection spell.
Don't be a pussy! Fireball him!
It was a 7. The Demogorgon. It got me.
The scene reverses Will's actions here. Once he gets home, he's in the same predicament as he was in the game. He's got to act against the Demogorgon, but he doesn't know how to. Once again, he's presented with two options, protection or fireball. Will learns from his mistakes here. Instead of going for fireball, he goes for protection. He tries the phone, then he calls for both his mum and his brother, and when they're not there, Will is forced to go all or nothing. He has to cast fireball. TV details, you're gonna love this one, trust me. In the D&D game, Will rolled a 7 to fight the Demogorgon. Obviously, this didn't work. In this scene, the exact same thing happens. Seriously, Will reaches for this rifle. This is his fireball. According to the Movie Firearms database, this particular rifle is a Mossberg 144 LS. This gun has a magazine capacity of 7 rounds, and we see Will load all 7 before taking on the Demogorgon. Duffer Brothers, if you ever watch this is some serious level to detail, holy shit. This opening is nothing short of phenomenal. It gives the viewer everything they need to know and presents enough questions to keep them engaged. It has suspense, laughs, and action, all in 8 minutes, and it should be held as the example on how to open a series. Got a bit excited at the end there, didn't I? If you like this video, why not subscribe? I get this excited about a lot of dumb things about movies and TV shows, and hopefully you'll find that funny. Thankfully, there's some actual movies releasing over the next few weeks, so expect more reviews. And thank you for watching.